You may have noticed that the program setting today is a bit unconventional. Normally, we start from theory and then we go to the practical side. But today we had this presentation on IPS, which is a practical experience. And now I have this opportunity to share with you my thoughts on the role of think tanks in contemporary world. Let me allow to do something more unconventional, which does not happen in these kind of sessions, and that is a small exercise that I'm going to have with you. I'm sharing this slip with you, and I would like to have a look at this slip, and then we can talk something about it. Some of you might have gone through this kind of an exercise. I would request them to keep silence and wait how we are going to link it with our topic today. But for those who are participating in this kind of an exercise, I hope it would give us some lessons. So the task at hand is to go through it, and I'm going to raise a question about it. I request you now to put it upside down. So can I raise the question? Who would among you like to respond? Anyone volunteer? Yeah. Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah. So you are volunteering. What's your good name? Mustafa. Question is, my friend, how many times the letter F has been used in this statement? Others can also ponder over it, but let him respond first. How many times the letter F has been used in it?
Twice.
And none is allowed to go through this statement again at the moment.
6.
Okay. What about the others? For example, you.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
You are thinking, yeah. What about you?
Maybe it's 4.
4. What about you? 3.
2.
What about you? Yeah. 4. 2. Can you exchange the slip? There might be different slips with the people. Can you exchange between yourselves and just have a look and confirm, is it the same statement? Same statement. Then how many times in your statement? 2. 3. 6. So I'm not going to continuing this exercise. I have done it several times. And I have found, in fact, this is the only occasion in which the first person has given the right answer. You said 6. Yeah, that was the right answer. And then I request you to go through again the statement, and you will find it is 6 times. Yeah, it is 6 times. Now, I shall conclude this exercise at the end of the talk, but this has a great relevance of today's world. We are talking of contemporary world, and the contemporary world has so many linkages to this kind of understanding of the people. You had a look at this statement first, and then you gave an answer. And then you had a second look, but most of you could not reach to the correct answer. So we shall talk about it later. Why is it so? And I think some of you are still focusing on the statement, how is it 6? Am I right? Yeah. At least 1, 2, 3, 4 people would be like this. This happens in every session. Outside Pakistan, in Pakistan, among the educated people, among the armed forces people, among the bureaucrats, teachers, students, every time it happens. And this certainly has some lessons. Now, while the topic stresses on the contemporary world, I would like to take you back to some 2,300 years back. Rather, 400 shall soon be. And every one of you, I'm sure, would be knowing Alexander. You know, he started his campaign from Macedonia and conquered some 13 countries which you today find on the world map. And nobody stopped him or could stop him. Of course, everywhere he faced some kind of resistance, but as far as the campaign initiation and then taking it along, conquering, he was not stopped by anyone. Coming back to this 2022, if an Alexander starts or likes to start a campaign from Macedonia today, can he start it just by having military might? No, never. Because the world has changed. And this change has brought so many factors in this war dynamics that you have to think a lot of times before attacking someone. And if you attack, staying there for some time, occupy that area. So if today Alexander starts his campaign, what would he need? He will have to build a case that can be accepted by the powers who are ruling this world, or by the institutions who are ruling this world, or who are governing, rather the governing might be the better word, who are supposed to govern this world. So you will have to build a case first, and that case should be accepted, and then a war should be sanctioned. Now this is the norm of today. When Alexander started it 2,300-400 years back, that was the norm. Might is right. Some people may say that might is also right today, and I would agree. But that's not enough. The physical and military might is not enough. If you do not have a case which is legitimate enough to convince the world bodies and to pursue them to sanction you for the attack, you can't. Although it happens, because might again is right, but you will have to think several times. So what happens? You have to prepare a case and justify, and a very strong case first to convince your own people that you have a justified case. Now, what that case would lead to be really accepted, it should have a legitimate cause. So if you look at the recent wars, taking from attack on Afghanistan, you will find that there was a legitimate cause. You accept it or not, but that was presented like this. Then an attack took place on Iraq. That was also justified under a legitimate cause. And now most recently we have Russia attacking Ukraine, and Russians try to justify them that they have a legitimate cause. So legitimacy is the first aspect regarding your case. The second aspect is your intent. What kind of intent do you have? And the legitimacy is dependent on that intent, that you say that you are trying to correct a wrong that has happened or that may happen in future. You will have to convince that you have a good intention. And the inevitability. What is inevitability? That there is no other means left to correct the situation except war, except an attack. You should be able to convince. And the next is, even if you are sanctioned a war, you will have to prove that you are observing the rule of proportionality, that only that much force will be utilized which is needed to correct the wrong, and not more than that. And also in the conduct of war, you will have to take care that you are observing the rules regarding distinction between the combatants and non-combatants. So if you are not following all these things, you will not be able to pursue that kind of campaign that Alexander had started in 2,400 years back. Now, all these questions to be responded require a kind of expertise. And that expertise is an area where the role of think tanks emerges. It is not related only to the war. In fact, in today's world, every field of life, you have a competition which always has a potential to turn into a conflict. And if it is a conflict, it can always be turned into war. So it may start from a small thing, but since it can become a war, and at the same time, war is related to economy. There is an economic war. So all these kinds of wars require a kind of expertise in which the governments, the policymakers, the stakeholders, they require expert opinion. So, and this is not needed only once, that if you are intending, or if the Alexander wanted to attack, he had a lot of expertise and he would utilize them. No, it's a continuous process. You always need a setup through which you can always get an opinion which is better than the one who is in the field. Of course, the man in the field is the best judge to take decisions, but as far as the overall vision, strategy, and then policies, and then action plans, all these things, they require a good expertise, an all-round expertise. So think tanks are the answers to all these requirements. By default, think tanks have a pool of experts, by default. It cannot be a think tank consisting of one person, a very good expert. One can be expert in one field. He can increase it to a couple of more fields. But at the end of the day, you need a pool of experts with diverse background, diverse experiences. Think tanks by default enter into networking, collaborations. As Mr. Naufal was presenting, we have a number of MOUs. Why? Because we cannot have a large faculty here, experts of everything, but when we are working on a particular topic, we may need expertise who may not be available to us, but under the collaboration, we can ask them to contribute, and vice versa, that if they are doing something. So it's a win-win situation, and by default, this area is covered by the think tanks. Think tanks have archival support. Whatever areas they are focusing, they have archival support. And although it has become easier these days because of this whole internet and this Google facility that every one of us has now, although in some countries like China, you still have to go to other sources, but they are equally good. So this archival support is now available to everyone. But now, let me now relate it to the exercise. And I put a question to you. If I would have written this statement or composed this statement into small letters, what would have happened? Imagine, the F would have been the largest letter on that statement. So if you would have missed it first time, at least second time, you will be able to locate it. It is 6 times. Yes, okay. So when you go to the Google and try to find out something, you have so many things available there. It becomes really a difficult thing. So again, think tanks are required to give you genuine opinion or genuine analysis. Yes, think tanks also have an outreach capacity. Every think tank has its own constituency and an area where it can reach anytime. By default, think tanks generate ideas and they present it. After packaging, make aware, educate, and advocate any case to be initiated, mediated, or resolved. So, if I am relating it with the war, and even with that war which took place 2,400 or 300 years back, do I mean that think tanks are nowadays a tool of war? No, not at all. I'm not saying this. Just like any other tool in human hands, it is the intention and will of the user that makes it useful or destructive. So think tanks represent a concept which provides you knowledge, which bridges the gaps between knowledge and policy. So it is in the hands of people, in the hands of the government, and whatever way they like to use it. As a matter of fact, just as you need intellectual support to initiate a war or justify the conduct of war, the receiving side, the victim, also need the support of think tanks. And for them, the support of think tanks means not initiation of war, but resisting the war. So if you do not have, along with the military might, this kind of might available to you, neither you can initiate successfully or nor you can resist it successfully. There are several categories of think tanks. In fact, one of the reasons why the consensus definition is not available regarding the think tanks is this diversity and categorization of these think tanks. There are government think tanks, and one can understand that they cannot do anything against the government. So whatever the government objectives are, they will have to work on that and they will have to observe whatever being asked to them. There are government sponsored and supported. They may not be directly part of the government, but there are categories under which you can find that the governments have given them an independent or semi-independent or autonomous face, and they are supporting it. In fact, as far as the results are concerned, both do the same kind of job. Privately owned, privately funded. Political parties also establish think tanks. And you may find the German experience very interesting, in which they have a pool of funds available with the government, and all 5 major political parties, they are funded from that pool, and each of them has its own think tank. So that's an interesting model. So there could be these kind of models, corporate funded, and of course endowment based, just as you noticed IPS is an endowment based. And in fact, what Mr. Naufal did not elaborate further, and I would like to elaborate it here with regard to IPS, is that this kind of endowment makes things independent for you, because it is the money that drives. Whatever you conceive, you want to do something. So if you are dependent on someone, whether it is government, whether it is a particular corporation, whether it is an international agency, you can't imagine in today's world that it would really allow you to be independent. And at the same time, the sustainability aspect, that if you have some arrangement under which you can survive for long, then you can always feel satisfied that we are not threatened. Similarly, they can also be categorized by their functions and focus of their work areas. Again, work areas could be related to different subjects: politics, economics, society, law, or it could be confined to geographical areas that we are working in this particular area. So you can find institutions who are working primarily on Central Asia, institutions who are working on Africa. So this happens. By definition, I would say, think tanks are supposed to be objective. Maintaining objectivity, however, is a great challenge. And I have indicated earlier what is that challenge. While many of them work for certain interest by default, the government has established a think tank, it has its own terms of reference, it gives assignment, it provides funds, and you have to do accordingly. So you do not have an independent space. That is one thing. So the greatest challenge by default becomes money and how to really manage it. So even if there are organizations which are not established by a sponsoring agency, they are compelled to serve special agendas in view of the high costs involved in establishing and maintaining an institution. Now here enters the market forces, just demand and supply. Someone has an agenda and he wants certain kind of policies, so he would like to influence the think tank, they will be supporting it. So a lot of temptation will be there that, okay, for the time being we can do this. And this is happening all over the world. Sometimes people in Pakistan, institutions like us, feel that perhaps this is special to us, it's a problem for us. But go to anywhere in the world and you will find that think tanks have to adjust their agenda because someone is supporting them for a certain kind of projects. This is one of those, I would say, tragedies of the contemporary world, that merit and morality, these two dimensions are being sacrificed against the market and money. What would be the result? It is obvious. Whatever happening in contemporary world, we can analyze it. Is the world going for better, or it is getting worse as far as the peace of human mind is concerned, peace in life is concerned? I would say wars will not end. So the need to get prepared for that, for wars, will also never end. But there is a dire need to have think tanks who can fight a war against the whole paradigm under which the world is being governed. If there is a consensus, of course, that the human beings have only one life, and mankind need a peaceful earth to live in. So if we are having consensus on these two facts, all efforts should be directed towards a world which has a better governance model, a kind of win-win situation for everyone, ready to or prepare to correct the wrongs, but not at the cost of things, not at the cost of morality and merit. So that's the challenge. When I am standing here as chairman IPS, that is the paradigm which we keep before us. We talk to everyone, we collaborate with everyone, but at the same time, we feel and we keep this in our view that this is the target we are trying to achieve. For some people, it seems to be like a utopian model. But I think the world has seen so many ups and downs, and it will continue to see these kinds of ups and downs in future. It is a target that everyone should aim for, although it may take some time. Now, just by reference, I said I will be giving a remark at the conclusion of the talk, though I have mentioned it earlier also. I think the exercise has a number of lessons. But one lesson that I would like to emphasize right at this moment is that that slip shows you how to hide and how to highlight. Something to hide, something to highlight, so that you can deceive people. We had a seminar only a few months back in Karachi University that talked about the post-truth era. We are living in that post-truth era. So try to find out the truth. And for that, each one of us will have to make our effort in whichever position we are. Once we have a truth, we should try to follow that, and we should try to fight for that. Thank you very much.